Thank you, Tom. Let's see, stop the share, I think, of the screen. Wonderful. So welcome everyone to a wonderful spring day that's going to turn to snow this weekend, I think, I hear. So enjoy it if you can. We are thrilled to have you. As Tom mentioned, I am the programming leader for our Tech Talks that we have every month except July. And before we get into today's Tech Talk, I just want to bring you up to speed on what myself and Michelle Piazza and Nancy Monroe are working on for the upcoming months. So in April, we're going to be doing a, I'm super excited about it because it's students, entrepreneurship, and tech innovation. So we have our own Martha Carney, who runs the big ideas camps here through Hub88 in the summer. And we have one of the leaders from Incubator EDU, who is going to sit on the panel that's going to be moderated by Gabriella, who is with Northeastern Illinois University. And we're going to have, along with Martha and Incubator EDU, we're going to have 4 students who have been through either Martha's program or through Incubator EDU, have iterated an idea, taken an idea through to a product, and in some cases further, that is, you know, really showing how these young kids can be entrepreneurs, own their own business. And one of the folks on the panel, one of the young students on the panel, is now in college pursuing an entrepreneur degree out at Babson University, and so, or Babson College. And so it's just, these programs really do seed our future entrepreneurs. So it's going to be a really great program. Invite all your kids. Tell, you know, all your teachers, and then anyone who is interested in supporting these young students in learning what it means to be tech innovators. So that'll be good. That's April. In May, Nancy Monroe will be teeing up a super interesting topic that's, you know, loosely called right now. We'll be looking at intelligent agents that are being built into consumer devices. So including neural linguistics, programming, that sort of thing. In June, Michelle Piazza will be bringing us a program. And then in August, we'll be doing converting data and tech to human action. So that's also going to be a very interesting topic. Don't forget, in July, we put our feet up and, you know, drink a few Long Island iced teas or whatever. And so that's what's happening with programming coming up. You know, if you want to get involved, if you have an idea, if you, a panel idea, we're always open, and you can email us at hello@hub88.org and let us know. And I know Phil will forward them along, and we'll be in touch. So now, without further ado, let's talk about today's topic. So you know, what the topic is really about drone regulatory status. So, and it's funny because as we've been preparing for today's session, I see an email that come across and say, okay, I'm going to change my slide deck a little because something new just happened. Okay, maybe I need to do, you know, this differently because one more new thing is going on. So this is an ever-changing, you know, industry. It's so in its infancy. There's so much happening here that we're really lucky to have this panel. And even more fortunate that Sharon Rossmark, who is also the co-chair with Tom of the Drone Interest Group, moderating today. She is the CEO of Women in Drones. So this is a global platform that features women who are disrupting, innovating, and shaping the future of drone industry. The company provides drone flight services. So it might include beta testing of drone products. It might do inspections, water beach erosion, drone safety audits, data collection, cinematography, and more. Sharon's company was voted one of the top 100 companies to watch in 2018, 2019, and 2020. So she's doing some really exciting things there. And beyond all of that, she also is the co-author of several books that are introducing younger kids to drones. So you can tell that Sharon is, this is like her life. And so we're thrilled to have you. And Sharon, I hand it off to you, and really looking forward to today's conversation.
Well, thank you so much, Lori. I appreciate that introduction, a very kind introduction. I will pay you later. So hello, everyone, and welcome to Hub88 Drone Interest Group webinar. As Lori said, my name is Sharon Rossmark, and I am personally thrilled for this opportunity to moderate today's webinar. One, because of the lineup of speakers and our topics. So first up, we'll have a speaker who will share with you the FAA regulatory changes for small unmanned aerial vehicles. And then we have a panel of entrepreneurs who will share their perspectives on the potential opportunities of the new regulations that will bring from their perspective. So first up, without further ado, let me introduce you to Vic Moss. Vic, if you don't mind, first of all, I appreciate you being here today, because I know with all the changes you have been busy all over the place. But I know that our audience is very much interested in hearing the most recent changes, because even the last few days have kept you busy. So take a quick moment, introduce yourself to the audience, and then share with us the overview you have.
Sure thing. Again, Vic Moss. I live in Denver, and I'm a photographer, videographer by trade. I've run my own company for 32 years now. I shot when we had film, so I've been doing this a long time. And got into drones in 2014, and really got in early 2015, really got into the legislative side of things. I have an art degree, so I always preface this by saying you're getting legal opinions by somebody with an art degree, so keep that in mind as we go through this. But I have become incredibly ingrained, I think is a nice way to put it, in the drone regulation. I'm also a citizen UAS drone operator on the Drone Advisory Committee. We were, Kenji and I were appointed to that in January. So that's who I am. And yeah, so it's been interesting. I did have to change some slide decks. As a matter of fact, I changed one about a half hour ago. So it's been interesting. And I had to push some shoots because I mentioned earlier, we're getting 2 feet of snow this weekend here in Denver. So had to move a bunch of scheduling around. So I'll just go ahead and get started. We will do this as quick as I can. We want to try and do this in 20 minutes. The shortest I've done it so far is 35. So I will talk quick. And if I need to cut it short, please interrupt me and I'll do that. So we'll just kind of hit the basics here. I need to start sharing my screen.
While you're doing that, Vic, I just want to
Sure.
remind our audience that if they have any questions, to put them in the chat, and we'll pick them up right before we start our panel. And what we don't get to before the panel, we'll hold them over to after the panel.
Perfect. So you guys have my screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you did it right. Okay, so real quick, this actually is for drone pros, and I have the wrong screen up, but that's okay. We'll just go through it anyway. I had one for the other company, but this is fine too. This is what we do through the FAST team. So if you're a FAST member, you've seen this. Some of the things we'll share real quick are, you know what, I'm going to do something real quick here. Sorry. This is what happens when I'm doing it really fast. So I'm going to stop share. I'm going to start a different deck. So give me just a second on that. I apologize. So let me open this one. Yeah, we'll just stick with this one. So, okay, never mind. Sorry about that. Okay, so back to this again. So I need to share screen, don't I? You think after all these, I know what I'm doing. Okay, now you have my screen again, correct? We're good?
Yes, we're good.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, back to this. Real quick, we're gonna go over some dates, and that actually is what changed today with the new federal, some new publications in the Federal Register. We'll go over recurrent training a little bit, night ops, ops over people, remote ID basics, which we'll just really skim over just for the sake of time, and then some the timeline and some miscellaneous rules. Most of you know, hopefully, that the new rules were published in the Federal Register on January 15th. As of today, these new dates down here, April 6th and April 21st, are the key dates that we need to work on. That has to do with recurrence, which is the main issue, and then flights at night and flights over people without a waiver. So some of the highlights, if you're a 107 and you need to go and become current, you do not have to go to a testing center anymore and pay $165. It's all going to be online training and it will be free. That was supposed to start March 1st. It is now going to start April 6th. So you'll be able to go online at FAAsafety.gov. And I did find out what the number of that was, but it was leaked prematurely, so I had to take that number out of my slide. That's what I changed just a little bit ago. We will also have operations over people and night operations without waivers that will start on April 21st, but you have to take the recurrent training or initial training after April 6th in order to take advantage of that. So we'll cover that a little bit. Recurrent training will also cover remote ID rules. The initial will not. So if you're signing up for a 107 initial, don't worry about learning remote ID rules. You don't need to worry about it. And if you are, once you do take your recurrent training or your initial training, the 24-month calendar clock starts over. So let's say you're not due for another 18 months, which is basically my case. I'm going to go ahead and take it as soon as I can. And my 24 calendar month starts over again. So it's not like you have to take it again in 12 months. It will be at the FAAsafety.gov website. So you'll need to go to that and get yourself an account. I would suggest you do that quickly or soon before the day you actually want to go try and take the training. Because I would think that on April 6th, the FAA also believes that on April 6th, their website will crash. So there are going to be a lot of people trying to take that test. So don't wait too long to get that going. We'll talk a little bit about night operations here. If you already have a night waiver, which actually is called the daylight waiver, 10729 waiver, those will all terminate on May 16th. So those will all be gone. Even if you just got it, you're only going to have it for a few months and then it's going to go away. I think mine expires in 2023, because I'm on my second one, 2024, but mine goes away as well. So in order to take advantage of night operations after that, you will need to have a recurrent training done. The training will night flights will require to have a 3 statute mile strobe, just like they do now. But you will not have to have a VO. That's one of the things that's a lot different than every single night op or every single daylight waiver I wrote or in my own all require a VO, and you do not need that. So that's kind of nice. Personally, I strongly suggest that you actually do one. So it's just a good idea to have it. One of the issues that has not been worked out yet is as of now, you can fly at night as a commercial operator in controlled airspace if you have your waiver. But since you're not going to have a waiver after May 16th, they're trying to figure out how to let people fly at night because night operations is not LANCE active yet. So keep your eyes open for that. I've been told that it will be available, and I hope so, because personally I will lose jobs because I fly at DIA, Denver International Airport, at night. Well, not right at the airport, but in their airspace at night in a zero grid. And if I can't fly at night, I do lose some jobs. The fear is that people are going to do it anyway, and that's going to be dangerous. Operations over moving people. Operations over people and moving vehicles. Sorry, getting ahead of myself here. One of the great things about the new rules is that we are going to be allowed to fly over people in a very limited scope at this point in time. And then they also added another rule where we'll be allowed to fly over moving vehicles. So we'll get into that here in just a bit. And that's all without waivers, by the way. But each one of those, the over moving vehicles is tied to operations over people. So the same rules on those apply. There's going to be 4 categories of operations over people. Well, it says here we'll dive into each one individually. Well, we're going to just kind of skim over it real quick for the sake of time. And as I mentioned, each one of those 4 categories has their own regulations. Category 1 is going to be the first one that goes into effect, and that will be on April 6th, April 21st. See, I got too many dates in my head now. On April 21st, after we take either the initial or the recurrent training. You have to have the recurrent training or the new initial with the new language in order to take advantage of the operations over people and night operations without a waiver. This one, if you take it on March 21st, you may go out and fly over people. Only though, if you have a very small aircraft, so 250 grams, and it contains no exposed rotating parts that would lacerate human skin upon impact with a human being. Now that's actually straight from the rule. I didn't make that wording up. I just think it's funny. That's why I added. Now, one of the issues we're going to see here is people are going to think, hey, I took the recurrent, I can go fly over people. You can't just willy-nilly fly over people. This is a very, very small amount of drones that qualify. There is not a single, I take that back. There is one single DJI product and no other products that I know of as far as ready to fly drones that will qualify for this. And that is the DJI Tello if it's got a prop guards on it. And what I have, one of my little Cinewhoops is a little 95X by Beta FPV. This weighs 195 grams with a battery. That is also one I can do that. Now, if you're going to fly over sustained flights over open air assembly, so that could be a football game, a construction site. Here in Denver, we have the 16th Street Mall. So during lunch hour, there's just a ton of people out there. You can't fly over people without remote ID. So that is probably not going to happen for a while since remote ID is not a thing yet. Category 1 will be up to the remote pilot in charge to decide whether or not if you're compliant. So that is the only category that you're allowed to do that. Category 1 timeline, again, it goes into effect April 21st. And again, no open air assembly flights without remote ID. Now that means you have to have a remote ID compliant drone. That does not mean remote ID has to be active in your area. So that's two separate things. So don't forget that part. Category 2, real briefly, you have to have a declaration of compliance, and that will be done by the manufacturer. So everybody asking, how can I make my drone category 2 compliant? Well, you can't in all likelihood. You're going to have to get something, either buy a new drone, or the possibility is something like Para0 system on a Mavic 2 might fit underneath all these categories, but Para0 or Indemnis or somebody is going to have to go ahead and get a declaration of compliance. And then the FAA is going to have to decide, okay, you can attach that this way, and you're going to have to make sure it's attached right, all that stuff. And one of the things you're going to have to do is make sure that your drone is marked by the manufacturer. So the manufacturer will actually have, this is a category 2 compliant drone somewhere on the drone. You cannot fly over open air assemblies without a remote ID on this one as well. Again, that's concerts, construction sites, etc. So again, no open air assembly flights on that. Category 2 timeline is after, it's going to be 9 to 12 months after April 21st. That's when the drone companies and parachute companies can actually start submitting their declaration of compliance. Then the FAA has to approve it, and then it goes back to the manufacturer, and then the manufacturer will start manufacturing these category 2 compliant drones for operations over people. So optimistically, first quarter 2022, realistically, second or third quarter 2022, and we'll start seeing these things come on the market. So it's exciting to see remote ID. I'm sorry, not remote ID, operations over people, but it's a ways away for anything in real commercial value. Category 3 is pretty much the same thing as category 2. It's just going to be a bigger drone. And the biggest part here is this is basically a closed set drone. You may not operate over people unless it's closed site, the person is directly part of the operation, or they're under a stationary vehicle. However, there's no remote ID requirement for these drones because since they are closed set drones, people are going to know where they are, where the operator is, and everybody's going to know what's going on. So this is an interesting fact that there's no remote ID, but you cannot fly these drones outside of closed sets. And again, closed set doesn't necessarily mean a movie set. Is basically restricted access site. So again, a construction site is restricted access, that kind of thing. And then category 3 timeline, again, is pretty much the same. You're looking quarter 1, quarter 2 next year, maybe quarter 3, because they have to wait for the declaration of compliance. That's what DOC stands for. Category 4 is basically for delivery drones. Is really a good way to put it. I mean, there's other drones that could be flown under category 4, But this has to possess, and the manufacturer has to produce an airworthiness certificate to the FAA. The FAA has to approve it. So this is a whole nother scope of drone operations. You have to have a flight manual, you have to be remote ID compliant, and you have to keep very, very, very detailed records to the point where this is the only category that not only can the FAA look at your records for, the NTSB can as well. So NTSB agent can pop up and say, I need to see your records. Probably after an incident, but you never know if you get ramp checked on something like that. Category 4, I would be amazed. Well, you know what? I'm not going to be amazed if anybody's doing this, because I know some people on this call that might very well be running or possibly even testing at this current time Category 4 drones. I'll let them talk about that if they want to. Timeline, again, is dependent on the airworthiness certificate, but instead of 6 to 9 months, I think it's 3 to 6 months is when the manufacturers can start sending those declaration or sending those airworthiness certificates to the FAA to get approved. Operations over moving vehicle, like I said, are tied to operations over people. A lot of people are seeing this operations over moving vehicles part, and they can say, I'm going to take my Phantom 4 and fly over I-70 and go from one side of Denver to the other. Can't do that. It's definitely tied into the categories. And each category, either to fly over a moving vehicle, you have to be on a closed set with notification. So again, movie set, construction site, that kind of thing. Or you can only be transitory, meaning I can only cross the street. I can't fly down I-70 with traffic. I can go from one side of I-70 to the other if I've got a category 1, 2, or 3, no, one or two drone, category 1 or category 2 drone. Remember, category 3 is for closed set only. For category 4 drones, it's basically going to have to be flown with in accordance with the flight manual. So again, that's going to be its own little separate category of drones, and most people will not be doing those. Again, as far as timelines, these are all tied to the operations over people. Remote ID, we'll just do this just a little bit real quick. Since it's so far off, we're not going to spend too much time on this. You have standard remote ID with a module, or FRIAs, which is the FAA recognized identification area, AMA fields, school fields, that kind of thing. So you have 3 different categories, but that's a ways down the road. We're talking 30 months at this point for when it needs to be taken care of. The standard and remote will both have, standard and module remote will both have, they have to have the messages broadcast likely via Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. They say likely because the only other way would be like a system like we already have in our drones, but those aren't quite ready for it yet. The range will be, a lot of people say, well, how far does it have to broadcast? The broadcast has to be maximized by the manufacturer. So you can figure that out however you want, but it does have to be, the broadcast will be line of sight. So the higher you are, the wider your broadcast area will be. If you're down low flying through the trees, you're not going to have much broadcast area. And compliance will be September 16, 2023. I think this may be changing with the new delay. I could not find it in time today, so this may change by 36 days, I think is the magic number. And you are not required to have remote ID if you're flying a sub 250 gram drone recreationally. And also, I did not change this slide. I found this out last week. You are also, if you're flying a sub 250 gram drone recreationally without remote ID, you do not have to fly at a FRIA because it is tied to registration. And so you can fly your Mavic Mini recreationally, as long as you don't put prop guards on it. Outside of a FRIA, and I can fly this little guy outside of a FRIA, and my little tiny whoops that I have flying around, that can all be flown outside of a FRIA without remote ID. The message will be compatible with a smartphone app or dongle, probably just an app, because they want to make this available to everybody and available especially to first responders, police departments that then don't need to buy additional equipment. That was one of the requirements that the DOJ wanted. And one thing people really worry about is, will personal information be broadcast? No, absolutely not. The only thing people will know is your remote ID number. So that little, either the module or the system will have a number where you're flying. Actually, we'll go into exactly what we're going to do here in a minute, but no personal information, your name, your address, your phone number, your remote pilot certificate, none of that stuff will be broadcast. And the only way for people to get a hold of that including law enforcement, is if they've got that remote ID number available, they have to then reach out to LEAP, which is a law enforcement assistance program. They have to reach out to their LEAP agent and then get an official request in. So they can't even go to FSDO to get that information. Standard remote ID means it's built into the system. You have your coordinates and your speed and all that stuff with it. All this stuff here. Now, one thing this will show that the other one won't is where you're located, where you're standing while you're flying. So control station, operator, it's going to show you where it is, where it's going to show who's ever looking at your screen, where you are. So they will be able to find you. Good side and bad side to that is, one, law enforcement needs to be able to find you. Bad side is everybody in the neighborhood who doesn't like drones is going to know where you are. But again, it's going to have that very small circle of broadcast. So the higher you are, the more it is, the lower you are, the less it is. The other thing about standard remote ID is it is going to be integrated into the flight system. That means you fire up your drone and it'll do a self-test. The remote ID system will do a self-test. If it fails the test, you cannot lift off. So it is going to be basically a kill switch, for lack of better words, or maybe a unable to engage switch, whatever you want to call it. And that will not be able to do that. So that is kind of one of the issues that worries me a little. I'm not wearing my FAA hat, I'm wearing my Vic hat at this point. It's another point of failure in the system. So if you're flying around, I don't know, maybe they'll figure out how to put it, hook it up to accelerometers and make sure it doesn't go off when it's moving. For modules, which is going to be for the legacy drones, for the drones we have now, if we're going to still be flying them, by the time remote ID is necessary, then we'll be able to buy a little module to stick on there, and it's going to show a lot of the same stuff the other one does, as far as the other system, the standard system. But one thing it won't show is where the operator's standing. It will show where it took off from, but then you can move or whatever, and they won't be able to find you. So, but you can only fly these particular drones visual line of sight. So even if you got a waiver, you can't fly these drones beyond line of sight. And then kind of down the road, that line of sight rule for the standard remote ID will come into play when we start having much easier access to beyond line of sight. One of the nice things about the modules as well is if you're flying under recreational rules, you can take that one module and move it to all the different drones you have, or all the different RC aircraft. Anything you've got that requires remote ID, you can move that along to all of them, because you're just registering yourself as a drone operator. You're not registering your individual drones. You can do the same thing with your 107 drones, but since they're registered individually, you have to remove the remote ID registration from that drone and put it on another one in the drone zone. So if you're flying a bunch of different drones on the same mission, it's probably just better off to have a remote ID module for each one. And this is also will be applied to home builds. So if you build your own. Remote ID timeline, again, this is basically what the timelines are. The September 16th may move one way, it may move those 36 days, I think it is. So I'm not sure on that yet. But the FRIA application is going to start being submitted 18 months after effective date. So that's again, May 6th, January, February, April 21st. And then FRIAs, if you're into the FRIAs, it's going to be a very easy process, and the FRIAs have to be reapplied every 48 months. This real quick, if you're flying, if you don't have a standard remote ID, unless you're under 250 grams recreationally, you have to fly at a FRIA. One of the issues with FRIAs are the boundaries. You have to fly within the boundaries of it. So that's going to create a problem with some of the smaller AMA clubs and some of the smaller schools, because educational institutions will be able to apply for a FRIA, as will CBOs like AMA. CBO is community-based organization. I'm hoping that the FAA will relax the boundaries aspect of it, because I know here in Denver, we have 3 AMA fields, and all of them are pretty small, because you don't need a lot of land to operate. You just need some place to stand, some place to park, maybe some place to charge. If you're flying RC, you need a runway. And so the work they have set up, or the things they have set up with the particular parks they're flying in, say, okay, well, you can have this is your land. but there's no way some of these guys and gals can fly inside the FRIA boundaries. So hopefully that will change. Fingers crossed on that. Miscellaneous new rule changes from the NPRM to now. NPRM was a notice of proposed rulemaking, which they released 2 Decembers ago. So December 2019, sorry. There's things like there's no internet transmission required. So that's kind of nice. So we're not all going to have to pay a monthly fee. Recreational flyers can still use their same registration number. In the NPRM, it said every single drone had every single RC aircraft. Everything that you fly has to have its own registration number. So they changed that, which is really nice for some of the people like John McBride, who has like 125 different little RC aircraft. So really, he was really happy when he found that out. ADSB, a lot of people, that's automatic. Somebody who's a pilot will be able to tell me that here when we chime back in. But a lot of people just say, well, just put ADSB on a drone. Well, that's going to totally clog up the system. So they actually wrote into the rules that you may not use ADSB as an RID mitigation. There will be some BB loss waivers, I'm sure, that have it. So there will be exceptions to that. There's also exceptions for aeronautical research and educational institutions. They may fly outside of a FRIA commercially without remote ID. And that is going to be a system that will be set up by the FAA to get approved. And also, which is a really fun part here, kind of ties into that first one, is the final rule actually provides a method and a mechanism to be able to apply for a flying without remote ID. Now, the reason that's important is, one, law enforcement. I mean, it doesn't make sense for a SWAT team to have their little Mavic or their little Autel dual infrared up looking at a suspect, and the suspect pulls out his phone and says, I'm going that way because they're that way. So, they'll be able to do that. And the other issue will be, hopefully, what we're really kind of hoping for is FPV races. Those things a lot of those are over 250 grams, especially the big 5 and 7 inch quads. And as it is written now, they'll have to weigh, or they have to have the remote ID on them. And of course, if you're into FPV racing or know anything about it at all, it comes down to micrograms and seconds as far as how fast these things go and how long they can stay in the air. They're timed that closely, not by me because I don't fly that well, but for those who really know what they're doing, they definitely have that down. So hopefully the FPV races will be able to apply for the FRIA, the RID waiver, exclusion, whatever they're going to call it, but there will be a process in place for that. So I think I did it quick, and that I made it in 20 minutes, but I'll stop sharing and turn it back over to you. Hopefully that wasn't crazy.
No, thank you, Vic. And,
awesome.
That was
that's
a lot
the
of
fastest I've done it.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for your time. That is record breaking. And for those of us that's in the industry, we have an appreciation for what it took for you to deliver that in such a rapid amount of time. And for those of you that maybe not quite familiar with all of the terminology that
sorry about that.
That's okay. It is complicated. It will require you to seek out help. And Vic, maybe for those that maybe couldn't quite keep up with all the terminology because they're fairly new, FAA website, or where else would you direct them to for additional information?
Best place to get all this stuff, and I type it in. I write FAA and it fills in the rest. It's really easy. FAA.gov/UAS. UAS, unmanned aircraft systems. That is literally, it's one of the best FAA websites because it's one of the newest FAA websites, web pages, and that is all things UAS related. And there are links on there that'll take you to resources, that'll take you to all kinds of different places, recreational flying, commercial flying, COAs, first responders, all that stuff is found right there. So FAA.gov / I can't remember, UAS, whatever the normal one is. I don't know which is the / and which is the /. So FAA.gov/UAS, and that answers all your questions, or you can reach out to me. I answer quite a few, and my email address is, I'll also put it in the chat, but it's vic@dspalliance.org.
Yeah, we can make sure you have it in the chat.
Sure, I'll do that right now while I'm thinking about it, or else it won't get done.
That's okay. So again, thank you, Vic. And we have a couple of questions, but we'll circle back after the panel for to go over questions, because otherwise I know that this topic could take us down a rabbit hole and not come back. So we will transition over. So again, thanks for the great overview. Again, I can't emphasize how complicated it is. So if your head is spinning, that's okay. For those of us in the industry, we've had to digest this the last few months. So we totally understand. So with that, we'd like to now hear from 4 industry leading entrepreneurs and have them share with you a little bit about themselves, how and why they got into the industry, a little bit about their business, and then we're going to toss out the question of the evening for them to address. So with that, let me turn it over to Ted. Ted, are you there? And if you're on mute, make sure you take off the mute, and we'll let you start us off with a panel.
Thanks, Sharon, and thanks everybody for being here. My name is Ted Parasad. I'm the co-founder of Helios Visions. We're a drone services company located here in Chicago, Illinois. I have a background in starting and growing technologies companies, and after some research back in 2014, 2015, somewhere around there, we discovered that drones are essentially flying computers. And we wanted to see how we could start a drone services business, right? Before then, any of the drones we saw had to be manually controlled. And, when we saw that drones could be controlled by GPS and hold their position, a lot of ideas started floating around. And so we started digging into, how to get involved in the drone industry. And at that time was pre-Part 107. And so, we had to sign up for the 333, which we received that a little bit before the Part 107 actually went into play, which made it much easier, as all the other drone pilots know, much easier for us to get in the game commercially. And so that was, really the birth of the drone industry, we feel like, right here in the US anyway. So, very excited to be involved in this. So, with that, with 2 other co-founders, we ended up launching Helios Visions. Again, we're a drone services company that specializes in using drones to collect high quality aerial data that enables developers, owners, engineers, and the like to save in time and money on their various projects. Our drone imagery and data can be used at every stage of the building process. So from pre-construction inspections and site selection, to construction progress monitoring, monitoring an ongoing high-rise development or large commercial development, into, after the projects are completed, ongoing maintenance for facade ordinance requirements, and rooftop inspections and those types of things. So as some of the stuff Vic was talking about, early on, we had received the at night, daylight waiver. And then a bit in the last year or so, we're the first drone services company in Chicago to receive the flying over people waiver, which as both of those are going to be going away, and we need some recurrency. And so that'll be, nice in general, right? It's something that we would have to reapply for. And so, now looping this into sort of the Part 107 process or remote ID, I think is going to be, helpful for commercial drone companies in general, and just one less thing that we have to deal with, because it's a lot of different moving parts, and it's ever changing. As Vic said too, it's just in the last couple of days they've changed the deadline and the start date for a few things. So we're always aiming for a moving target, and I feel like anybody that's sort of joining now or still in it, it's we're up for that challenge, and it's the excitement around that, using these new technologies to really create some efficiencies and that type of thing. So we also have extensive experience and specialize in flying drones in dense urban environments and in confined spaces. And so there's some challenges there that we're facing, and remote ID, that new iteration of drone regulations, I think is going to help, a lot of these things that people are talking about that are coming down the pipeline, like drone deliveries and other types of operations that are going to require, drones really to be identified the way that they are. And it'll be really interesting to see where that all goes. So very much looking forward to our discussion, and look forward to hearing from everybody else.
Great. Thank you, Ted, for that introduction. Our next panelist is Bronwyn Morgan. Bronwyn, can you unmute yourself and share a little bit about yourself as well as your company?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Glad to be here. And it's good to hear Vic again. I'm Bronwyn. I have two companies in this space. One is Zeo Air. But before I get to all that detail, I've worked in corporate for a long time. I've been in and out of Silicon Valley for the last 20 years in different capacities. And before I got into the drone space, I had been an innovation consultant working with Fortune 500 companies on future-proofing strategies. So I was looking at all kinds of technologies and helping them understand how not to be disrupted, how to disrupt, and working with senior level executives. And when drones came up as a civilian commercial opportunity, I was like, yeah, this is great. Since a child, I wanted to work in aviation and aerospace. And if you ever hear any talk or anything I've ever done, you'll hear that same story. Wanted to be a fighter pilot, couldn't do it. Women couldn't fly at the time, so I'm dating myself. But when drones came up, I thought, this is it. So studied, got my Part 107 and started Zeo Air. I'm also an FAA drone pro and an FAA safety rep like Vic. We'll tell you a little bit more about Zeo. Zeo is an outsourced AI-based or drone services company, also focused on data analytics, very deeply on the data side of things, and autonomy. And we're focused on infrastructure-based verticals such as telecom, energy, which would be wind and solar, oil and gas, utilities, civil infrastructure, and then overlapping with things like disaster and catastrophe, as well as climate and environmental observation and smart cities. So basically, Zeo is a destination for customers to come and build their missions, similar like you would build a mission or a drive in Uber. You can build your mission within the platform. We then fly the mission as your data comes back so that it's analyzed. And that's where AI comes in, both in helping you build your missions and understanding what you need to do. And then also on the analytics side with computer vision and a deep immersive experience. And we're venturing into autonomous systems to allow ourselves to be able to provide our customers, because this is all these are very sensitive assets, continuous operation. Because you just don't want the grid going down. If you're a utility company, if you've got a disaster, we're going to offer both fixed as well as mobile capabilities to do that. Quickly, the other company is Airversity, and Airversity is where we teach people FAA exam prep for their Part 107 and flight training. We're about to announce some new news about some locations where you'll be able to come and do things if you're a commercial pilot, as well as public safety. And we have offices in St. Louis and Atlanta. And our first office outside the US is moving into place in the next 30 days. So excited to be here tonight. Such a great group of people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bronwyn. I appreciate that update. Up next is Ryan Walsh. Ryan, you can unmute yourself and share a little bit about yourself and your organization, please.
Sure. Hi, I'm Ryan Walsh. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Valkyrie. We focus on universal drone delivery infrastructure, particularly the landing stations. So we partner with a number of drone operators, systems integrators, and various drone delivery companies to deliver packages for various use cases. So we're working on a number of medical applications. Recently, we did the golf course beverage delivery in Scottsdale, Arizona. So we're very excited about all of the opportunities that are coming from the new developments, especially with this being a big step. Obviously, it's not full beyond visual, but it's definitely a sign that the FAA is looking to adopt the right regulations, and there's going to be some back and forth, but overall it's a good move. And so we're really looking forward to all the capabilities that are going to come from this through our various drone partners.
Great, thank you, Ryan. And last but certainly not least, I'd like to have Founs Genesee introduce himself and his organization.
Well, hi, I'm Founs Genesee, and I'm the CEO and founder of Unmanned Systems Operations Group, affectionately known as USOG or USOG. And yes, I'm the category 4 that Vic was talking about. Primarily, we are an integrations company. That's how I like to see us. and we're focused on the delivery space. And we have patented some very unique delivery systems for drones. We're the first multi-package delivery system for UAVs anywhere that I've seen so far. So that's kind of cool. We're working closely with Ryan over at Valkyrie and his delivery stations. So that's, we're kind of coming together to create a system, an ecosystem for drone deliveries. I'm also an FAA safety team member, also a drone pro, sit on the CompTIA board of drone advisors, and just a little busy. My background is that I was a flight nurse with the United States Air Force, flew medevac for 18 plus years. And that's what really got me interested in drones and what they can do and the possibilities that they can provide in the medical space. And my company only does two things. Number one, public safety. Number two, save lives. That's, if it doesn't have anything to do with that, we're not doing it. If you want to order pizza, you can use my system, but I'm not going to deliver it. Simple as that. I'm also a former audio engineer from Disney. So that's kind of where all my geeking and fussing around and putting things together that don't really go together comes from the Imagineering side of things. And that's who I am.
Great, thank you, Faust, and also thank you for your service. I have a deep appreciation for those who've worn uniform to protect our privileges here in the United States. So with that, panelists, I'd like to take us around the bend and talk about the regulatory changes that Vic was so generous to spend his time covering with us today. But from an entrepreneur standpoint, I'd really like to hear from you all how these regulatory changes will create opportunities in the commercial drone space, and in more particular, the potential impact on your business. So Ted, why don't you kick us off? We'll go back around the bend to Ted and kick us off. Share with us your perspective on how it's going to create opportunities as well as the impact on your business.
Yeah, definitely. I think the formalization of the remote ID is really taking the drone industry to the next level, right? Where the commercial drone industry still is sort of new. And so some of these more advanced operations that are opening up, I think it's really legitimizing our industry and, kind of placing a flag of, the industry is here to stay and the FAA is there to support it, which is great to see. And so, as an entrepreneur in this space, really putting full effort into our operations and looking to the future to see what other opportunities are available. There's still some details that need to be worked out with remote ID and, some of the opportunities are still to be realized. But, being able to, think about automation and think about drone deliveries and that type of thing, thinking about being able to, run autonomous drone inspections, maybe remotely without having a pilot actually on site would be very interesting to support our client base in terms of asset inspections and construction progress monitoring. And so, as we move along, it'll be just exciting to see, the industry get creative and just see, what this is going to allow for us in the future.
So from an immediate standpoint, with the changes that are coming up, let's say the next couple of months, since there's been some delay in the rollout of implementation, are there any of the immediate changes that you see will be beneficial to your business?
Sure. Yeah. The addition of the flying over people and at night waivers being added to Part 107 is really going to open up operations in general. It's we've already have enough time, dealing with the operations as is. So having another one of these sort of admin types of things included is definitely helpful. It's going to open this up for everyone in a big way. So it's good to see that these things are being implemented, fairly soon here.
Great. So Bronwyn, from your perspective, how do you see these changes creating opportunities, and what potential impact do you see them having on your business operation?
Oh, I mean, this is huge. I mean, this is, we've been talking so long about flying at night, flying over people, BB loss. And what this does is it really does, and it will impact the bottom line of the company and revenue projections, because now I'm not limited to just, dusk to dawn. I now have the ability to push, initially pilots out, if it's 9 at night, we would, be able to do that. Now we've got to be very sensitive to equipment and where we're flying and make sure we've got our 3 statute 3 statute mile probes. But this is a complete game changer. I've been in a conversation recently about a smart cities test, and they want to do a lot. And there's, can we do this? Can we do this? I'm like, well, not all of that, not right now, but there are certain limited things that we can do. So people, customers are getting very, interested and excited about this. And for someone that's working with critical assets and infrastructure, being able to provide that continuous operation is critical to what we do. It's critical to the customer, and being able to turn data around, 24 hours. So this is a very exciting, if you do it right and you do it safely. And I think what's coming with RID is a game changer. So as we get into larger equipment and autonomous operations, all of this plays directly into our business model. So I'm excited about this, and I look forward to not only these changes, but the ones that are coming.
Yeah, the next round will certainly be even more impactful. And so Ryan, why don't you share with us your perspective on the changes?
Sure. So we are not as impacted being in delivery, right? As Fons mentioned, we work closely with USOG and several other companies, and it's not going to have as big of an impact as it would for Bronwyn's, right? We're still waiting on some of those later stage, rules to come down the pipeline, but right now we're very hopeful. It shows at least that they're starting to categorize this, even if it's in that category 4, that they're starting to look at what standards are required and what's actually going to be needed to scale and implement this. So while there are certain small business cases that can be open under 107, particularly closed campus hospital type deliveries and golf courses and things like that, where line of sight is still more than acceptable. Those start to look very small when you look at door-to-door delivery for every single home and business in the country. So in the short term, we still think a lot more of the big developments are going to come from our overseas markets, just because they tend to be a little bit more open. But we're very hopeful, and over the next few years, we do expect some big things coming out of the FAA.
Great, thank you. And Founs, from your perspective, especially being in the delivery side of the industry?
I see it as a great thing, but then I'm also apprehensive. I can see the flip side of the coin, this kind of being a bad thing as well. I see, let's start with the bad and we'll go to the good. My challenge is that now, after I've went through doing all the paperwork to get my night waiver, flying over people, all those waivers that I have are all gone. So I had to take the time to think about, mitigate, and create operations in order to do those kind of missions. Now that you get a Part 107 and now you can go do it, you don't have to put the forethought and the planning and what have you to conduct those operations. And so people that are not trained or don't have mentorship in order to conduct those operations appropriately, it could be disastrous to the entire industry if you have a lot of people, having accidents and things that could have been mitigated only because of their negligence. And that's the negative side of it. But on the other side, for the professionals that are out there doing this and operating appropriately, I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think it's amazing. I've been running automated missions for quite some time now. Remote ID allows me to manage multiple aircraft at the same time. It helped me manage deliveries to a platform like Ryan's at Valkyrie. So it has a lot of advantages. And like Ryan mentioned, that our overseas clients currently, this is where it's going to take off even faster. And they're not quite as restricted as the United States, but then again, their thinking is a little different. They're more acceptable to change, I would say, than the FAA. Vic is giggling because he understands what I'm saying. But this is a game changer. It's a step in the right direction. And I understand the reluctance of the FAA to change quickly because they want it to be done safe. And I can appreciate that. And so I'm on board with it. I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to growing with the FAA, even though they're still behind. But I have the opportunity to exceed what the FAA is doing overseas currently. So I'm okay.
Great. I hear you loud and clear on the concern that by us moving to just the training aspect of being able to have the waivers available. They were called waivers. They won't be called waivers now moving forward, because as you indicated, you put a lot of time and thought and energy into the planning. And that's going to be a step that's going to be interesting to see how that gets incorporated, because that's going to be necessary. I mean, we all know, every one of us that's been talking this evening, we all know that we're flying in the national airspace. So there needs to be that thought process into planning when you start talking about putting a small aircraft in the air and the potential damages that can be done. I want to switch over to some of the questions we have from our audience. In fact, Florence, since
Actually, can I say something first real quick,
Oh,
Sharon? I'm
sure.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Just to you know, piggyback on something Florence just said real quick with the waivers not being necessary anymore. Now, the over people waiver will not be necessary, but you know, the drone, you know, if the drone field is that big, this is the amount of people that can fly over, or this amount of drones can fly over people. Those operations are going to be incredibly limited. So even you know, even with the time and stuff that Farns and everybody else has put into that, that still will pay off. We're you know, it's not like on the 16th or on the 21st now, sorry, let's go fly our M600s over, you know, over I-70 or down 16th Street Mall. That's not going to happen. You still can get a waiver to mitigate that and be allowed to do that. Now, I don't think you're going to be able to fly your M600 down 16th Street Mall, but you know, in a situation like what Farns is talking about, yeah, that the time and effort that people have put into those waivers are not going away. The night waivers, the daylight waivers, 10729, those are going away. That's the only one that's going away. They're just opening up the over people stuff little bitty bit. We're like, can it peek underneath the can just a little bit to see what's down there? So it's not a we're done with waiver situations. So sorry, I had to clarify that a little bit. Sorry, Francis.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. No, thank you
right.
for that clarification, because that is very important. So I appreciate that. Did one of the other panelists want to chime in before we move to questions from the audience?
One other thing I might say is that those of us who are professionals and are flying already, we are ambassadors to the rest of the world on what drones are about. So we have to be doing our due diligence to be safe and safe flyers. I mean, rule number one is safety. Rule number two is safety. Rule number three, check rule number one, safety. So we are the ambassadors. So every time we engage in our missions or engage with the public, we just have to remember that. And I just don't want the overall industry tarnished by people that, oh, I can fly at night now. Next thing you know, into a plane. Who knows?
Yeah, FAMS, I agree. As an FAA safety rep, I 100% agree. And for a lot of people who are all, you know, Vic gave you a great website to go to, but there are a lot of us safety reps around the country. And if you've got questions, you know, Vic obviously is a great place to go. Poor Vic has been just paraded all over the country doing these and the whole drone advisory committee, but mostly Vic, I think. And we should be your liaisons as FAA safety reps to help you if you get stuck or you can't find anybody to answer your question, because you can imagine April, May, June, their phone lines are going to be just flooded with questions, because there's a lot of detail here. But the most important thing, and FAMS nailed it, is if there are one or two incidents that go bad, it will impact all of us almost immediately. And that is not a good thing. So I think we've all kind of, you know, we've witnessed what happens in aviation. It's one incident creates a ripple effect throughout the entire system. So, you know, just keep that in mind. That was a great point.
You're absolutely right. It only takes one. I mean, we see it every time a pilot on a manned aircraft thinks they see a drone, what that means from a media standpoint and the impact it has on us. And so to that point, maybe I know Vic did put in there the FAA website, Bronwyn or Vic, if you want to speak to how someone can find their local FAA Drone Pro.
Yeah, I'll put that website in there too. It's actually FAAsafety.gov. And that's and FAA is the first to admit it, that website is a train wreck. But if you go to search, I believe if you put Drone Pro in the search box, you will come up with a list of drone pros. But you'll pull that website up and go, there's no way I'm able to find anything on that. That's what the search button is for. But I'll go ahead and put that in the chat as well.
Thank you. We did have a question from our audience that says, do we know if drones were used during the Texas energy disaster? And if not, how would it have accelerated the recovery? Vic,
Sorry, yeah, they were done. What some of the things they did is they went up and did some inspections on some of the frozen windmills things. My brain's not working, sorry. Anyway, the big windmill things. They did inspections on those. They went and did some inspections on down power lines, trying to figure out where different things were messed up. You know, they were using infrared to find the active and non-active. So there was some used. I don't think drones were used to supply power. I'm sure some drone operators out there probably used their batteries that were charged to figure out how to run their coffee makers and stuff. But no, as far as that, yeah, it was definitely helped bring things back online. But as far as I know, that's all it was. And somebody else has more information than I do.
Yeah, I was going to say, did anyone else want to chime in on that? Any experience or knowledge you have about the Texas energy outage? No? Okay. I thought I saw another question in here. Oh, it was a comment. So Probin's out in the audience. Hey, Probe. It looks like all of our friends have joined the session this evening. You were right, Founce, about the potential of problems of operators not planning, but even under the new regs, Part 107 professionals must plan, mitigate risks just as much in the now as in the future than they did under a waiver. So you're absolutely right. You're right on the money there. Great, and it looks like a few people have chimed in. I'm just looking at questions here. With that, let's turn to a couple other questions for our panelists. So Ted, from your perspective, what are the biggest challenges to broad proliferation and use of autonomous systems?
Yeah, what we found in urban environments, especially, is with GPS navigation drones. It's a real challenge because there are spots that GPS is lost, right? Or areas where the signal is not as strong as you'd need it to be to have regular autonomous operations. And so I think there's some hardware challenges and some other sort of, technology challenges that we face, regularly when we're in the field. At specific locations, but you can imagine what that can do in terms of, flying long distances or around a city in terms of, smart cities and that type of thing. So some of those challenges are being solved with drones like the Skydio 2. It uses, visual sensors and that type of thing, which, has its own challenges as well. But, compared to GPS, sometimes GPS signal jumps around and, you want the drone to be as stable as possible for safety reasons and for data collection and data integrity. So those are some of the challenges that, we face currently. But again, once more autonomous or to enable more autonomous flights, those are definitely some of the challenges that need to be solved.
Yeah, I totally agree. That, and in fact, Vic might want to talk about that from his perspective. Vic, you have a comment?
I think you summed it up pretty well. Yeah, so sorry.
No, it's okay. I didn't mean to catch you off
No,
guard.
that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, no problem. So Bronwyn, going back to the 107, because I know you said that you're offering some opportunities for Part 107. How will Part 107 evolve with additional requirements added to the certification process?
Well, I think what we're seeing now, because literally we were just about to film a piece for our next training round. And I had to tell everybody, I'm like, wait, I have a lot of new stuff to add in. And then as of today, I'm like, wait, I got more. I didn't get to work today. I wasn't feeling well. So I was just seeing stuff come across my phone. And I was like, oh God, what new dates, new stuff that I've got to bake in. So I think 107 will continue to evolve. And as we are moving to more autonomous systems, flying at night, and in some instances, larger equipment, I suspect, and I was just having this conversation yesterday with an air traffic controller, we're going to go beyond just the ground school and the theoretical test to actually having to demonstrate our flight capabilities, just like everybody else in aviation does. I mean, you cannot take a Airbus A380 up in the air without demonstrating that you know how to fly it and fly it well. You've got to have your hours. You've got to, you've got to have your check flight done. I mean, that's way, way earlier, but you got to go through the sims. And you have to do that every year to make sure that you are capable and pass all of your, your exams and your certifications, and so that you can maintain your relevancy. And I can see drones becoming, or Part 107 evolving to that. And as we get to autonomy, I'm not even sure yet what that will look like, but I think the aircraft that we fly, while all of them have to be certified, I think we're going to see even more of that come into play as this now becomes a huge issue. And you've got so much happening in the airspace, so much more aircraft. But yeah, I see Part 107 evolving. Hence, we're creating these destinations to teach professionals how to fly, and not just like you just take this once, but it's a place to continue to come back, because I do believe we're going to see more stringent requirements and capabilities testing.
Thank you. Other thoughts on that line of thinking?
Absolutely. Internally, we're constantly flying, and we're constantly, doing check rides internally. I'm also a top certified pilot. I don't know if anybody knows about the AUVSI top certification program. And that's a knowledge exam and physical test that you have to do to become a top pilot. And the other thing that she mentioned, the other thing I wanted to mention was about the autonomous flying. I'd have to say, I lean away from the word autonomous because, number one, the FAA hates that word. They prefer automated because autonomous requires a level of intelligence that's on board an aircraft that is disconnected from you. And at this point, that doesn't exist. So we fly automated missions because we tell it where to go, what to do, how to do it. And at any point in time, we can flip a switch and take over the mission. And so I tend to go towards automated versus autonomous, because every time I talk to the FAA and then I say that word, I get spanked. So no, thank you. Yeah. As Ted was mentioning earlier, and with the GPS denied navigations and things like that, that technology is coming along much faster and further than we anticipated. We're able to fly a combination of a GPS and a visual system that creates kind of like a point cloud as it's flying. So it keeps relative navigation down to the centimeter level. Those systems haven't come online fully yet, but they're out there and being tested. And those things are coming soon. So, yeah.
Great.
Fams, I accept your clarification. Thank you.
I didn't mean to step on anybody's toes. It's just the FAA gets on my case. So I figured I'd help somebody else.
You're spot on.
Thank you. Was someone else going to comment from the panel? Okay, I thought I heard someone wanting to jump in. And I want to remind our audience that the session is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel within a couple of days, I would imagine. And I know particularly we had a couple of people that joined us late. So feel free to check back on the hub88.org website, and you will be able to find access to the recording of this session. We did have an audience question. Chuck Byers is asking, as drone operations scale up, will the system eventually need the equivalent of TSA? Let's start with the first part of that. Or let me read the whole thing and then we can come back to it. And then he goes on to say, one could envision screening stations with X-ray or MMM wave scanners that would verify a drone is configured as shown in the flight manual and the payload is as recorded in a manifest. Is that inevitable or too far out to worry about?
I'll take that one. So if you look at, any given road network, right, from the highways all the way down to the street signs to just the way the vehicles have to be tested and meet specific standards, that didn't happen overnight. All of those things advanced. I mean, when the first cars, I always, refer back to this, it was going 2 miles an hour and you still need to have somebody out front with a flag and a lantern to make sure nobody got hit, right? fast forward a few years and you've got the Autobahn, right? I mean, that wasn't even a decade or two between some of those big developments. And so the same thing's going to happen in this industry. You're going to see these things develop, and you know, there are going to be, I'm sure, certain certifications or way stations or, you know, all kinds of different things that are going to start coming into play as it evolves. You know, to Bronwyn's point, this is going to be evolving, and it's never going to stop evolving. And as we find new flaws in it, it's going to keep evolving. And, you know, the industry as a whole will find ways to patch those holes that we come across. But I don't think there's a possibility that the momentum in the drone industry goes backwards at this point. So I do see those systems coming onto line over the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Great. You know, and since you were just speaking, Ryan, first of all, I agree with the points you just made, but I want to, before we have to close out, I want to also take us back to your work and the, it's not really drone delivery, but the actual mechanisms. So how are you addressing the needs of various customers? I mean, you know, when you think about homes have different needs in apartments, from commercial buildings, I just think that's so fascinating, the space that you all are in. What about your work will allow you to address the needs of different customers?
So a big bulk of what we do is on the back end, right? The authentication between the drones and the landing stations, all of the different routing and sorting mechanisms, the customer interaction, and pretty much everything in between. So actually making a different mechanical design, whether it's our large drone delivery station now for many users, or our mailbox, which will be debuted later this year, or our window and balcony mounted unit, which will be coming out next year. It's really about finding out what the market needs, right? Just like there's, you know, back to the automobile, I mean, there's everything from motorcycles to semi trucks on the road, right? And so as the other side of that is the infrastructure piece, we need to make sure we can accommodate all of them and for each customer base. So we see a very diverse product line over the next few years as we start meeting each of those markets and as we get closer and closer to the city centers.
Yeah, you know, you raise a great point. I like to use a similar example when I'm speaking to groups, when everyone's like, oh my God, how's this all going to work when you've got helicopters and drones and commercial aircraft all in the same space? And I remind them that, you know, there was once upon a time when we had horse and buggy and cars and motorcycles and, you know, that, you know, in fact, here in Chicago, for those of us in the Chicagoland area, you go downtown and there's bus lanes, there's bike lanes, there's vehicle cars, automobile lanes, and it can be quite confusing. And some of them have different stoplights or different traffic lights for each. And we figured it out. And so it's the same thing that needs to happen in the sky. We will eventually figure out the lanes. In fact, I shouldn't say we, the FAA, as well as, you know, a lot of our colleagues that have got big brains that have been working with them have that figured out. Now it's just a matter of having some of the smaller air vehicles like drones be identified on radar on the system so that they can be seen. Other thoughts from our panelists?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Real quick, sorry. You know, I see definitely the enterprise side of things definitely gonna end up being, you know, TSA, I don't know, something like that. Problem with TSA is, you know, you've got airports and all the planes take off from different airports. So, you know, you've got that central hub. But the enterprise things, it's the trouble is going to be, how do you do it even at the enterprise level? Because you're going to have so many different points of departure and so many different points of arrival. You know, there's not going to be this one central place. And we all know how well TSA and the FAA are staffed. It's just not going to happen. But I don't ever see anything at all like that going for the small, you know, the DSPs like myself, drone service providers. I don't see something like that really happening feasibly, simply because how are they going to do it? You know, it's going to have to be a self-regulated type of system for the vast majority of what people like myself do.
If I can jump in, Vic, that's one thing we're looking to address long-term, is setting those standards for a lot of the ground and landing station infrastructure. So it would be supported on one giant network that is independent from the aircrafts themselves.
Cool. Okay. Thank you.
And that's where we come in, is that we're trying to set the standard for the delivery mechanisms, because the systems that we've patented is drone agnostic. So you can be a service provider of whatever kind and throw our system on to your aircraft, and it integrates directly with Valkyrie's mailbox system. So we're trying to set the standard. Just like I like to say, you have an aircraft and you put your luggage in it in those metal bins that everybody's seen at the airport, and they slide in and well, that's who we are. We're that metal bin that's standardized for the drones to land on these delivery stations, and that's what we're doing. So if we can set the standard and self-regulate in a way that we don't have to have the TSA involved, I think that would be much better.
Agreed.
Totally agree. Yeah. So as we wind down our panel, I want to remind our panelists that if you don't mind, why don't you put your contact information in the chat function. So if anyone wants to reach out to you and ask questions or follow up with you, that would be a great way for them to capture your information. And for those of you in the audience that don't know, whether you're trying to do a quick copy and paste, down at the bottom of the chat box, there's 3 little dots that are horizontal to the right. If you just click on that, you can save chat, and all the information that's been listed in the chat this evening will be captured, including email addresses. So that's just a quick function for those of you that may not be familiar with it. I wanted to see if our audience had any more questions. I'm not seeing any. So let me circle back to our panelists for any final comments, or from the wizard that's behind the screen there working our operations. Phil, do you see anything, or Lori? You see anything that I may have missed in the chat as I was trying to scroll through here?
I've been scanning through, Sharon, and I did not see anything that you missed.
Okay.
So yeah, great panel. Keep going.
Okay, great. So panelists, just down the horn one more time with Ted. Let's start off with you. Any final words you want to share about any of the changes that we're seeing in the industry, or any foresight that you want to share from your perspective and the impact on your business?
We're just really excited about the drone industry at the moment. It's really accelerating quickly, and it's exciting to see somebody getting involved, and just really looking to see where this is going to go, and happy to be involved in helping lead that direction in a way as well. So great chatting with everybody, and see everyone out there.
Great. Bronwyn, any final words?
Yeah, thank you so much. This is great. Amazing colleagues here who've been presenting tonight. And I think everybody can see the breadth and width of this industry. This is a great time if you're interested to get in, whether you are in software development, you are interested in drones, you're interested in data analytics and automated systems, and because it's only going to become more complicated and more detailed. And, I talk about it, this is a great time to get in. And it would be a great time for you to take your Part 107 and at least have that under your belt, because you never know, you may want to participate, in flight with us. So I encourage that, and you can do that at airversity.com. I'll put that also in the notes. Thank you.
That's great. We're all about giving ourselves plugs. So absolutely. So Ryan.
We tend to, talk about all the rules and all the things limiting drone technology right now. But we're just on the beginning of the first blip of what this is going to turn into, and the opportunities in this for entrepreneurs to start in their garages. I mean, this is truly the days of the first computers and Microsoft, and who can really figure out the next big economic model. And this is probably one of the biggest things since the internet came around, in my opinion. So I don't think there's a better time for people to start diving into this. To Bronwyn's point, I mean, this is just right for people to start taking advantage of. So, please reach out if you ever want to bounce ideas or anything else, because we're very excited about where this industry is going.
This is an excellent time. You're absolutely right. And Founce, bring us on home. You're delivery guy, so land the drone for us, Founce.
Okay. Hey, first off, thanks for having me. I really appreciate this. I just see myself as an ordinary guy doing fun things. So thanks. The drone industry, it's wide open. And if you're just joining the industry, that's great. Get your Part 107. And I know some people think, hey, I don't fly very well. I'll never be a pilot. That's okay. If you understand Python, you've got a job. GIS, you've got a job. Okay, you know how to do 3D printing, you got a job. CAD drawing, you got a job. Because all these skills I just mentioned are what I use on a daily basis, just me, myself, on a daily basis to do what I do. So you don't have to be a great pilot, but to be a pilot and understand what's going on and then apply your talents to whatever aspect of the industry that you love, do it. This is a great time to start maybe a software business that it's all about drones, understanding Mavros and GIS and all those things. So, you know what, whatever your dream is, go out there, go for it, dream big, dream huge, actually, because you know what, there's plenty of room for all of us in this industry. And from here on out, we're the ambassadors, we're blazing the trail, and go for it. And that's all I have to say.
Great. You know what? And I'm sorry, Vic, I didn't mean to skip over you. So thank you, Founce. Vic, any final words?
Yeah, first of all, Provan was in a meeting with Mike O'Shea of the FAA earlier today, and he just sent me a message that said that the 2022 and 2023 dates will not change. So all that stuff with our ID will not change. So I'll make sure I change that in there. But yeah, I'll say thanks for this, obviously. You know, you guys, you have some panel members here talking, you know, high level stuff. And, you know, here I am, just a videographer, photographer guy. I want to come hang out with them sometime. But I also agree with Farns, is this industry, and I get this question a lot, is should I? It's like, yeah, I mean, there's always room for somebody with a skill set and the drive to do it. I mean, it helps if you bring a skill set, you know, GIS, photography, delivery, anything like that, but that doesn't mean you're excluded if you don't have it.
Right.
Drones are a tool. Use them to build your business.
And Sharon, one last thing, I want to do a big shout out to you and Women in Drones. You are killing it, and what a great global leader as a woman in this space and a friend. Thank you for what you're doing and for highlighting this, and also to Hub88 for having us. And you know, these kinds of talks are so important to help people understand what's happening in tech and how to get engaged. So thanks to you both.
Absolutely. Thanks,
Yes,
Sharon.
thank you.
I
Thank you.
forgot one thing real quick.
Sure. Yep.
Some of you, oh, I don't want to go to school and get a degree. Well, guess what? You don't need a degree, but it's helpful. And I'm not discouraging anybody to go into school, but just like the entertainment industry that I came from, nobody cares what degree you have. You got to show the work. So build your own little drone, build your own little software program and show it to us. Show it to the people here, show it to the world. They will help you get to where you want to go.
Absolutely. It's a very collaborative field. And that's one of the things I love about it. And the world has gotten much smaller for me in the last few years, and certainly in the last year, in terms of relationships you build. So with that, I want to thank our esteemed panelists. I want to also turn it back over to my co-chair, Tom, if you had any closing words for us today. Now is a great time to jump right in.
Oh, I'm just thrilled. I mean, I've just been drinking it all in. I think many of you know that I'm, you know, not from the drone industry by background. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'll just leave everyone with one analogy that kind of keeps on coming to my mind every time I learn more and more about this space, and that is the story of the internet. And so we all know about like the .com, right? Like I was there in the Valley with some of you, like the .bomb, right? That was the 1.0. Well, guess what? All of the major unicorns that we see now came out of Web 2.0. So this industry has been one in which we've already gone past 1.0. There was already a bubble. There were already where the, you know, companies were too far ahead of the regulations. This is the very beginning, the dawn of the 2.0. So exactly what Farn said, now is the time to go all in on this, in this area. If you've got, you know, any kind of ambition to apply this technology for good, now is the time. So super excited. Thanks for being for letting me be part of this too.
Well, thank you. And Lori and Phil, anything from you from behind the scenes there?
No, I just want to thank the panel for all of this interesting, inspiring conversation around drone technology and career opportunity, and that that each of you really were encouraging people to just jump in, learn about it, and be a part of this exploding, exciting new I don't know, sort of, I want to say Star Warsy sort of thing, like really, it's just fun to be on the front end of something so exciting. So thank you all for coming. Again, our next Tech Talk will be April 14th, same time, same place. You can register at hub88.org. It's free to everyone. And if you ever have any questions, you can go out to our website and find hello@hub88.org, send us an email, and we're happy to help. And this will be on YouTube, as Sharon mentioned. In a couple of days, you can go to our website and find the links, or go out to YouTube and find us there. So thanks so much for everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening and hopefully warmer weather.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Fly safe.